Hello everyone, Mimi here. So one day I randomly encountered Zana when I decided to do a few maps after work, and she gave me a Cortex Relic Chamber map. Now I had no idea that this map is where Bottle of Faith are produced, and I had some bad experience with unique maps before. So I was gonna skip it and pick another map that has Harvest in it. But since my character has done Cyrus already, so I thought I should be able to do it. Let's try it out for the Atlas objective completion. And that's what I did. And as you can probably tell from the title, that a Bottle of Faith was pooped out from the final boss. Now in my experience from the previous league, this thing is worth about 2 to 3x. So I was like, okay, nice. Now I have 3x to upgrade my character. That's cool. And then I proceeded to check the current price and... Alright, I'm rich now. 11x sounds like enough for me to make a decent new character. I'd rather have another decent character that can do most of the content in this league than increase 10% damage on my current character. This was halfway into the league and I only made one character thus far. I then started looking around YouTube and did some research on POE Ninja, and I saw quite a bit of Flame War Burning Arrow, Cosm Crit Ice Nova, and Toxic Rain. So I decided to try out Herald of Thunder AutoBomber, because it looks very fun to do. There are quite a bit of interesting concepts on this build that I haven't dived into yet, and this build was always out of my reach because of how expensive it is, so I never had the chance to try it out in my Path of Exile life. But I really like the whole idea of walking simulator playstyle, and none of the recent builds seems fun enough for me to try over the AutoBomber. So that's why I choose this build. And oh boy, that was such a great decision. I had so much fun seeing everything exploded before I reached them, and the mapping speed just goes through the roof. I just have to run towards the boss room without having to worry about clearing mobs most of the time. If you ever have enough currency to build this character, I strongly suggest you to at least try it out once. However, it does have a few flaws. It's not exactly the build that can do everything for you. It definitely needs a lot of currency before you can even get the build functional, so it's not league starter viable. Even with around 17 exalt invested into the build, which is what I currently have, I still don't think it can defeat Cyrus as easy as my Reap Cyclone build. What I currently have can only do some T16 maps. Anything more difficult than that will start to kill the character very often, because this build is not tanky in any shape or form. It's basically a I kill you before you kill me kind of deal. Most of the T16 bosses can one-shot me with their skills if they do have any damaging mobs on the map. So right now I'm using my Bomber to clear the map and then switch over to my Reap Inquisitor when I reach the boss room, which I do have a video if you want to check it out. It's pretty much a perfect combo to do most of the content. One has overdrive mapping speed and the other can reliably kill most of the bosses. And since I did spend some time on tweaking this character, I might as well share with you how I decided to build the character. Let's start with the Storm Secret Rings because they are the core of this build. Most of you who watched this video probably already know how most of the build functions, but for those of you who don't, how the Herald of Thunder actually works is if you kill a shocked enemy, it will create a storm, which is the thing that zaps everything when they come close to you. And basically the ring allows you to create the thunderstorm by shocking the enemy instead of having to kill the shocked enemy. So you can actually sustain the thunderstorm on bosses when there is nothing around for you to kill. So now we just have to figure out a way to reliably shock the enemy. The easiest way to do that is to take the Elementalist Ascendancy and take the Shaper of Storm passive, which makes your hits always shock. However, I did not go for that route because there are a limited number of ways to scale the damage of Herald of Thunder. One of them is crit damage, and going Elementalist means it will be harder to scale crit. And also, if I went with the Elementalist route, I will have to use Golems, which I don't want to because the Golems will die. And this build doesn't have enough room to worry about sustaining Golems. So another way to shock enemy is to crit with lightning damage. And that's where the Crit Assassin comes in. Assassin naturally has a lot of crit passives, and we also use 4 Herald medium cluster jewels that has self-fulfilling prophecy to buff the crit chance of our Herald of Thunder. The other skill has to be Impelled Envoy because that gives the most damage. Now each one of them are around 1 to 2 exalt, which is a big reason why this build is expensive. In fact, about 2/3 of the currency was spent on cluster jewels. The large ones are around 3 to 4 exalts if you are going for decent ones like mine. Anyways, back to getting more crits. We have some crit passives here and also the staff crit passives here and here. We then take all the power charge passives because they give crit chance and they synergize with the ascendancy passives. So we have a total of 7 power charges. I decided to use Badge of the Brotherhood to let my frenzy charge equal to my power charge and then anoint it with Discipline of the Slaughter, so I can reliably generate frenzy charges while also receiving a huge damage boost. With the Diamond Flask, my crit chance is around 85%, which is good enough since I've got multiple sources of damage that can crit. And also Herald of Thunder hits twice as fast because we have double Storm Secret Rings, so Thunderstorm can definitely sustain itself no problem. Now as we all know, the downside of these rings is together they deal 500 lightning damage every time the storm hits something. So I use the Agnorod? I'm not sure if that's the correct way to pronounce it. Miss Google can't pronounce it. I found no one on YouTube pronouncing it, so I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna call it the South Staff. Now this staff pretty much gives us everything we need. The most important thing here is the 5% maximum lightning resistance, which makes our max lightning resist to 80%. And that means we only take 100 lightning damage from the ring instead, which is sustainable with our build. Now there are also North, West and East staff, which all gives us very similar stats, except the price difference. Obviously the South Staff is the best in slot here, sitting at around 1 to 2 exalt because that's the one that gives 5% max lightning resist. However, I was using the East Staff because the 6th link only cost me 19 chaos, and honestly you won't feel much difference until you hit red maps, because everything dies so quickly that you're not taking much damage from the ring, including bosses. So realistically, any one of these 4 staffs would do as long as they are 6 linked. You can slowly work towards the South Staff if you are short in currency. Now because we are taking quite a bit of damage from the ring consistently, we're gonna utilize that a little by using a level 1 cast on damage taken link. It has Wave of Conviction for exposure, Cold Snap for chilling enemies, so we can reliably use Hypothermia on Herald of Thunder, and Assassin's Mark to buff our single target damage. This link is better than using Arcanist Brand because it is auto cast and auto aim, so you can have one less button to worry about. Note that if you are using the staff that doesn't give you max lightning resist, you will actually proc this link more often because you are taking more damage from the ring, which actually increases your DPS a little. So if you can somehow sustain the damage taken by the rings, the East Staff would actually be better. Next gear is the Impulsor Armor and Storm's Gift Glove. We are a lightning build that's shock, so Impulsor is a no-brainer here. Storm's Gift will spread your shock ailments around, so once you shock something, the whole screen is pretty much shocked as well. Pairing that with Impulsor enables you to chain exploit the entire screen after killing one mob. And then the rest of the gear are just for life and resistance. This build is kinda short on resistance because I used 2 Thread of Hope, so you probably want high tier resistance on these yellow gears. Okay, now we look back to our passive tree. The Calamitous Vision Jewel is a hard required gear like the Storm Secret Rings. Without this jewel, don't even bother switching your build over. And yes, you won't have enough damage to do anything if you try to level with Herald of Thunder at low level. So you will have to think of a temporary build like Arc or something to level your character until you can equip all the required gears and jewels. And that's another reason why this build is a bag league starter. Anyways, this jewel basically hyper buffed the Herald of Thunder damage, but in return you can't use any other auras. Very straightforward. The other 3 small cluster jewel slots are for you to fill up whichever stat that you're lacking. You're most likely to lack some dex, strength, or some resistance, so you have 3 jewel slots to fix them. The last important thing on the passive tree I want to mention is that the only reason why we are using staff instead of other weapons is because only staff has passives that can benefit Herald of Thunder. Spell damage doesn't work, increased crit with weapon doesn't work. In fact, anything that has with weapon at the end of the sentence will not work. For example, elemental damage with wand will not work. But if it says while wielding a weapon like the enigmatic research here that says increase area of effect while wielding a staff, then it will work. Alright, for our skill links. Herald Thunder with Hypothermia because we do consistently chill enemies with our setup. Added lightning damage, lightning penetration, power charge on crit here because that's how we sustain our power charges while fighting bosses. And then energy shield leech for the damage boost because we are guaranteed to lose energy shield when we do damage, so we will always be leeching and take the full benefit from the gem. And then we have Void Sphere. Yes, Void Sphere. And more specifically, Divergent Void Sphere because it converts physical damage into cold damage, which helps with the reason why I choose this skill, crowd control. And don't worry, this one is cheap because no one really uses Void Sphere. And even if somehow it becomes super expensive, it wouldn't matter too much if you use the normal version. It'll just do a little less damage. And why Void Sphere? Well, because of 3 reasons. First, it looks cool, so it's gonna make the character more fun to play with. Second, because of ultimatum content. Since this build is a glass cannon, I was thinking of a way to consistently survive in the trials. The trial is in a confined space with lots of deadly things chasing you with hundreds of kilometers per hour in speed, and they are fairly tanky as well. So having a huge crowd control skill that slows and sucks everything together will be a massive help to clear the trials consistently. I've also added Ice Bites, Hypothermia, and Elemental Proliferation to freeze everything that gets caught by the skill. It works so well that I even took the Breath of Rhyme passive for even more freeze action. It literally is a night and day difference for my trial experience, or any league mechanics that puts me into a similar situation. The third reason is this skill will also help with shock and chill effect that we always needed. Sometimes the enemy will have some ailment resistance. Often when that is the case, I won't be able to sustain the thunderstorm because I have to dodge away from the boss from time to time. And the storm won't be hitting the boss as often as it need to sustain itself if they have like 70% ailment resistance. Having this huge ball down means it can help me attempt to shock the boss while I'm far away. And don't underestimate the clear potential of Void Sphere. You can reliably put it down on a pack of T16 mobs and walk away knowing they will most likely be cleared. So in certain cases, like if the terrain is complicated, it can actually help speed up your map clear even more than what it already is. Next, we have cost on damage taken defensive link with Immortal Call, Withering Stab, and Stone Golem. In most of my build, I always have a max level cost on damage taken linked with a guard skill, a golem, and some other support skills. This is so that it will activate the guard skill when I receive a burst damage, which is usually when I need it the most. We've already talked about the other cost on damage taken link, so I won't repeat that here. Just remember the defensive link is max level and the offensive link is level 1. And finally, we have Veil Arc, Power Charge on Crit, Elemental Proliferation, and Flame Dash. Veil Arc has 100% chance to shock, so even if you are facing something that has really high ailment resistance, you still have something that guarantees to proc your thunderstorm. Finally, the Flasks. Since we are using crit, but we don't have 100% crit chance, so Diamond Flask is a must. Aziri's Promise gives us some damage, Cinder Swallow also gives us damage, and more importantly, sustain. I'd say Cinder Swallow is a hard required because of the sustain. Then we have Roomies for some survivability and Quicksilver for movement speed. Remember to get Bleed and Freeze immunity between Diamond Flask and Quicksilver Flask. And that's it for the build. It's not too complicated as to how it actually functions. Generally, you just have to zap something with your arc to start the thunderstorm, and then you just walk to the boss room while looting on the way. When you are doing a trial, just put down the void sphere in the middle of the trial and run around in circles while focusing on avoiding danger, until everything dies. It's definitely not a cheap build again, however, I'd say it's considered as cheap with what it can actually do compared to some other crazy high-end version of this build. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it, that's why I decided to buy some NTX on it for some fancy fireworks. Anyways, that's it for today, subscribe if it helped, best luck for your loot drops, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.